I am in the park with the issue of mental illness in my mind. I feel that our community-based mental health care system is not working. Some of the members of our occupations are mentally ill, myself included, and I feel that how we are dealing with this is not working. We need to have a discussion about this. We're convening a working group about it, and I wish that we would be able to do that in the weeks. Thank you.
Their basic needs cost, and they get like, I think only $195 for their basic needs. And the shelter assumes all of that, they take all the money. And the people themselves only get $15 a week for their basic needs. Like a pair of shoes is $20. Can't even afford a pair of shoes for $15 a week. So I think maybe if you could see to it that the people got the money for the basic needs and only the shelter money went to the shelter, that would actually generate help to the people themselves. And that would be a good solution. Another solution that's imperative is to move the women from the men's mission. That is a dangerous situation that should not exist. I've addressed this to the Homeless Coalition, and I will come to the Homeless Coalition for you and address it in depth. And I would love to do that, to see that the women that really need the place are safe to go there, because the women that really need that place won't go there because of the men. And so the most vulnerable women are in our society are put in with the predators in the society. That isn't working. And the same with the youth at the Salvation Army. There needs to be a clear separation. They're not in a safe situation. Especially when they're bailed by the justice system, they're forced to stay at that place with their predators. And this, I think, needs to be, we can fix that.
My biggest concern is about the legislative tools that are or aren't basically in place for dealing with civic engagement. We hear a lot about civic engagement and I want to engage with citizens, but in reality there's no real obligation at all on the part of councillors after they've got, or any politician, after they've got over that election period. You're not obliged to deal with people again or listen to them in an authentic manner. And I find that very problematic. So one of the things that I'm looking for is to see some accountability of elected officials between election periods, a genuine sharing of the public agenda, and a changing of legislation to accommodate that. For instance, having legal recognition for petitions that are generated by civil society, by citizens in London. In Ontario, we don't have any legislative protection for that.
I have a federal issue that needs to first be started at the community level, and it addresses monetary reform. It addresses the national debt, the amount that it has grown since the early 80s, from under about 50 billion to 500 billion plus, and this is interest that's going to banks. It is odious debt. It is not in the public interest, and I feel that it should not be paid.
My name is Matthew
Helen Oyster.
Yeah, we know your father.
My personal concern is the apathy that has spread across the country and people allowing their representatives to do as they please without coming to them. For example, when you look at what's going on in Ottawa right now, there's 4 measures being passed in a very rushful manner that does not allow the representatives the time to engage their community to find out what they want. What I am looking forward to is to see the Engagement Task Force's policy be looked at with very serious consideration and see the people up here, and we want to fill this for the 8th of November so that council can realize that the community will use the policy and the procedures.
People who can no longer support their families on 1 job or even 2 jobs, but now the suggestion is to have 3 or 4 in a household just to make ends meet. Taxed 50%. Most of that money has been going up to corporations. Bailouts for Ford on the threat that they would pull out. 3 years later they have. Bailouts for people who have subsidies and tax breaks and forgiven back taxes. I don't pay my back taxes, my house gets taken. If our corporations in the city do not pay their back taxes, we forgive their debt, and sometimes include more subsidies and more cash money to be put into slush funds and reserve funds. This upward mobility of our tax dollars is what has created a situation where there's not enough jobs here, where we have homelessness, where students are paying more for an education that may not in fact deliver a job at the end of the day beyond McDonald's, leaving the uneducated with no jobs at all, therefore leaning on the tax dollars even heavier. We need to start to address how the money flows, where it goes, who is actually pushing the direction of our laws, and have a fair society, one that actually takes taxation, leaving it on the backs of all people equally as by their means, and allowing for real development. This policy of money goes up and then is going to trickle down has obviously failed. It has failed in the extremity. It is now creeping and encroaching further and further into the pocketbooks of the general population. They're not quite aware of it because all we hear about is how all our money is going to homelessness and this program and that program. But where the bulk of the money is going is not in those directions. And it's time that people start addressing where the money is actually going.
I'm Anthony Verberkmos. I figured I'd offer some unsolicited advice.
Are you an occupant of the park too?
I am an occupant in the park and a single parent here in London.
Okay.
I think you need to recognize that if there's anything in common with the people in our occupation and the occupations going on all over the world, it's basically recognition that the institutions, the political institutions that have been made available to us, that have been in charge, have utterly failed us completely. And worse than that, it appears they're selling us out right now. And the people who are a part of these occupations put their faith in direct democracy, a participatory democracy, because that works, this doesn't.